decide to release it. But I think, St. John Bosco, we knew it coming into the season, but now it's becoming real. It's not going to be, it's not going to be a nice, easy breeze through the postseason. St. John Bosco, they took it to the first three opponents they played. And you could throw Mater Dei in there as well. They beat 34-7. That game was, a game until halftime. But, St. John Bosco, they breezed through, 4 out of the 6 playoff games last year. And, you're not going to see, you'll see maybe Bosco breeze through the first round. That's about it this year, because you look at the Mission League, and these are all battle-tested teams. That's the thing about the Mission League. The Mission League compared to the Trinity League, the Mission League plays 7 league games. The Trinity League only plays 5. So, these are teams that are getting beat up and bruised week in and week out, but they're getting that experience against quality opponents. And the team really on the rise to me, in addition to Long Beach Paul and Corona Centennial, is Crespi. I can't help but think that Crespi, whose only loss on the season is a 1-point loss against Gardena Serra, I can't help but think that Crespi is that somewhat of a dark horse. This year coming into the postseason, like I've been kind of, beating a dead horse on the broadcast the last couple of weeks, they are led by quite possibly the most underrated at the moment coach in Southern California, which is Troy Thomas. Troy Thomas is the former Servite coach who led them to those 6 Trinity League titles and that state championship appearance against De La Salle back in 2010. So, they're a very well-coached team. They got, for whatever reason, they got into the playoffs last year over Jay Serra, but this year, this Crespi team, they really deserve the postseason berth, and they've already clinched the postseason berth, and they still win the Mission League, which would be quite an accomplishment in itself in the Mission League's first year with Crespi being in it. So I think that's the team to watch out for. But I think if you're St. John Bosco, you can't hold your breath, because what if you see a Mater Dei team again that should have beat you the first time out in the playoffs? What if you see a Jay Serra team that should have beat you the first time again in the playoffs? What if you see a Corona Centennial team that, might just outscore you? I hate to put it like that, but the way the St. John Bosco defense plays, Corona Centennial might win that game 70-68. So, there's so much that's going into the postseason this year. And it's going to be a fun ride. But can St. John Bosco stay on that ride until we get to the StubHub Center and see either De La Salle or Folsom? Because we don't know. A lot of people think Folsom is the better team up north this year. So, it's a lot of fun. I can't wait.
Okay, if you think that high school football is tough to gather around as far as playoff scenarios, junior college is a whole nother ball game. It's basically, we've gone through 8 weeks of the season of a 10-week long campaign, and we still have yet to, out of the basically what many regard to be one team out of this going to the state championship, the toughest conference in the state. The National Central Conference has yet to be decided on close to every team. There are 4 ball clubs vying for 2 spots. Take a look at what Riverside, who is the front runner, has to work with. If they beat Chaffee on Saturday, they will be called the number 1 team in the National Central Conference, and there's no discussion with that. Or if they just win their game the following week against Citrus, then they clinch a playoff berth. Meanwhile, you go to the number 2 team, Mount Sac. They have to win against El Camino, hope for a Riverside win, and hope for a Long Beach loss in one of their next 2 games. Then it's the Mounties that enter the playoffs. You go to what Long Beach has to work with. They play in their next 2 games, Citrus, and then home to take on El Camino to finish the season. They've got to win 2 straight and hope that the PRI index has them ahead of Mount Sac, which right now it looks like they aren't. So that's going to be an interesting final couple weeks. And then you take a look at Chaffee. They win their final 2 games. They will officially be into the postseason. Chaffee takes on Riverside at home, which is definitely very fortuitous for them, the number 1 team in the state of California. And then this is a ball club that's going to be scoreboard watching for the final week of the season. So it's going to be fun to watch, and I would like to bring on Chris, play-by-play man for Mount Sac, real quick. And Chris, this is a team that really, you take a look at Mount Sac and Long Beach, the 2 teams that you've definitely taken a look at, and this is far from over. Both ball clubs are hoping for wins and losses from elsewhere to get in.
This is up in the air. I think this one's more up in the air than outer space than balloons. I mean, I don't really know what reference to use at 10:23 on a Wednesday night. But I will tell you this much: I think. I mean, it's really tough. I mean, I would hate to be the committee to choose between Long Beach and Mount Sac, but what I do think is I think Citrus has a legitimate chance to take down Long Beach City College. I mean, it's a day game. It's at Citrus, and I think Citrus has a very good quarterback in Larry Cuthbert. I think there's a chance that Citrus can take down Long Beach, and if they do, then Mount Sac is 100% into the postseason, assuming RCC takes care of safety. But it all comes down to that ridiculous PRI point, or what is it? Point ranking index, something like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the abbreviations that the kids use nowadays, but I will tell you this much. Chafee. Let's talk about Chafee. Chafee, a team that moved over from the American division to the national division this year. That's like going from the FCS to the FBS in college football. That's like Cal Poly going from the Big Sky to the Pac-12. That's about as real as a comparison as I could give you when it comes from Chafee hopping from the American to the national. And what Chafee has done is, it's been impressive. It's been remarkable. When I saw him play against Mount Sac, the Mounties blew the door off of them. I think they beat them by 33 points, something like that. And but I mean, you got to tip your hat to Chafee. I mean, they're a team that went to the postseason last year. They're a team that was the top team in the American division last year, and they've translated that success from the American division now to the national division. And hey, if I'm Riverside, I've gotten back-to-back huge wins over Mount Sac and Long Beach City College, but you can't overlook this Chafee team because all of a sudden Chafee's into the postseason for whatever reason if they can take care of Riverside at home on Saturday. And Chafee's not an easy team to play at Chafee College, and it's another day game, it's another trap game per se. I mean, we all know what happened with RCC down at Grossmont in the lone day game that the Tigers have played this season. So, do I think that Chafee will beat the Tigers? Absolutely not. But do I think it's possible? Absolutely. So, I think if you're Riverside, I mean, I think you still need to go into Chafee, Rancho Cucamonga, wherever the heck it is. I think you still need to go in there, scratching and clawing, and I mean, not assume that the game is won from the coin toss, because Chafee will put up a fight, and if you're looking at it from Chafee's perspective, they're fighting for a playoff spot, just like Mount Sac, just like Riverside, just like Long Beach. So Riverside's going to get Chafee's best shot on Saturday, and they better be ready for it.
Yeah, this is when you talk about Chafee, it is the second worst ranked team coming in since the Grossmont game all the way back in week number 3. The only team ranked lower coming in was that game on the road against LA Harbor. Dan, this is a team that in Riverside is one win away from clinching the National Central Conference. I thought that was the case last week, but Chafee able to win their third straight football game to improve in 5-3, and really Riverside still has to play tough for one more week.
They do. One win away with one loss, only a great record, 7-1, a 5-game winning streak right now. It's a team that's gotten itself on the roll and finally getting things settled down on offense. We saw pretty much their best performance, Nick, on last Saturday against Long Beach City College, a game we thought was going to be super high scoring. Both teams coming into the game over 400 yards total offense per game. We thought this was going to be a shootout. And then RCC defense just proved to be way too much. Overbearing, an early interception that just they didn't look back after that. So RCC is looking like a team that's continuing to develop right now, and especially on offense. Nicholas King finally emerged against Long Beach City as the guy who we could probably trust on 3rd and long because of his ability to run. That's about it. I wouldn't trust his arms yet. We'll see when it's like 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20, when we really need to see his arm if he'll step up. But we'll see that in the playoffs, and we'll see then if Nick King finally emerges as a championship quarterback.
Well, neither us or Mount Sac has seen in person the play of Citrus College. That's the last team that Long Beach City will take, or the next team that Long Beach City will take on, then finish at home against El Camino. And Dan, I would like to get your thoughts as well on the Vikings game against Citrus and then El Camino. They're one loss away from being out of the playoffs. We talked about Riverside, and we'll get to Mount Sac in a minute. But real quick, Long Beach, they're in the bottom of this. They're at the cellar of the conference right now, actually looking up at the teams that, including Mount Sac, that they've already beaten this year. Your thoughts about Long Beach and if they could run the table? They're on a 2-game skid right now.
I feel like they could because they learned a lot about themselves against Riverside. Riverside straight-handed it to them. Straight put it on a platter and said, here you go. There's your ham. Because they went hard. They went hard at Long Beach. I'm telling you, that quarterback, Potter, got rattled. He hurt himself again, had to come out. We don't know that situation. So that's the only coin flip. If their starting quarterback, Potter, is healthy, I think they do run the table because they're against a Citrus. And what's the other team?
El Camino, a team that we all know about as well.
Yeah, so it's too deep. They don't have defenses like RCC. So with the healthy offense, I say they run the table and they squeak by barely with two losses.
That would be amazing because that would mean and right now out of the polls, right now, but that could very well change in the next few days.
It might. I think you won't see a change, this week because I think Mount Sac's going to take care of business against El Camino, and I think Citrus, win or loss for Long Beach, they're going to give Long Beach a game. Long Beach isn't going to go into Citrus College and just romp over the Owls. Like, I'll tell you that much because you look at the quarterback situation, it doesn't look like Kenny Potter's going to be back this season. It looks like RCC banged him up pretty bad. And sure, Brock Dale, he's been just as effective because at the end of the day, they're both quarterbacks in that Viking offensive system. But I think at the end of the day, what the committee has to look at is, obviously the head-to-head stands out. Long Beach beat Mount Sac. I mean, for a lot of people, that kind of stands out as a no-brainer right there, that the Vikings should go into the postseason ahead of the Mounties. But you look how the Mounties beat JP College like a drum, and Long Beach went and lost against JP. And you look at the Mounties blowout wins, both 24-point wins against the two other playoff teams right now, Fullerton and Ventura, where Long Beach didn't have a single impressive non-conference victory. So all of a sudden, just like we were talking about high school, we're talking about their resumes again. We're talking about the wild card, the at-large bid, the final bid into the JUCO postseason. And I think at the end of the day, even when you factor in the head-to-head that Long Beach did beat Mount Sac, I think Mount Sac's resume is a little bit more impressive. And I think that they should get the nod over Long Beach City College. But, I mean, if the Vikings want to get into that final postseason spot, they need a dominant win this weekend at Citrus, which I don't see, and then another dominant win the following week in their home finale, their homecoming against El Camino.
Yeah, it all comes down to whether the panel believes that the head-to-head where Long Beach City College beat Mount Sac, is that a more legitimate argument for the playoffs? And mind you, that game was played in week number 7 of a 10-week-long year. So that's week 6 of a 10-week-long year. So it's far from the finish line. Meanwhile, Mount Sac, outside of that game, really has dominated the rest of the competition. It's been either one game or a whole season that Mount Sac has put together. Meanwhile, we take a look at Chaffee, a ball club that Riverside takes on now, and if the Panthers are able to win that game, then turn around and beat one of the worst in the conference in L.A. Harbor, in fact, one of the worst in the state in those Seahawks. And, Chris, you took a look at them as well. This is a ball club that could win the entire deal. Is this a team that even has a chance against the Tigers? You talked about them, you think, not winning the game, but definitely they have a shot. They have a couple key pieces on that offense.
Hey, I think anything can happen on any given Saturday in junior college football. And we saw it with I go back to it, and I know it brings up some sad times for you and Dan Gadino, but